And the do's and don'ts are worth reinforcing here. When resistant behavior happens, don't confront it head on, roll with it. Don't get diverted into falling into the argument or disagreement trap. We want to avoid arguing. Do not use that as occasion to judge, criticize, blame, because all that's going to do is damage the therapeutic alliance. Don't argue for change in the form of warning about negative consequences when your person is as ambivalent as their quote-unquote resistant behavior seems to indicate to us that they are. Don't get too analytical at that point with a highly ambivalent person. That's just going to distract or not resonate with their person. They're going to feel, like they're a guinea pig on, under your elite kind of analytical gaze, and that's not comfortable for an ambivalent person. Do not confront authoritatively. It's predictable what happens when we do that with ambivalent individuals. They will argue against change. And then don't use sarcasm or incredulity. Tends not to work so well with anybody in terms of feeling respected or empathic, and certainly not for folks who are highly ambivalent. But we do want to use those reflective statement techniques that we talked about earlier. Simple reflections, double-sided, amplified reflections. And we do want to shift focus. If somebody's getting into a victim kind of a position, we don't want to go there with them and reinforce that or wallow in that with them. We want to maybe shift the focus, change gears, put the focus on what they can do rather than blaming, joining them and blaming, why it's somebody else's fault that they're there. And certainly rolling with resistance. I mean, if you think back to your area of difficult behavior change that we talked about during the first motivational interviewing module, and the difficulty you may have had with making change in an area of difficult behavior for yourself, and the unhelpful helpers, right, who did the finger wag or the criticism or the what's wrong with you type of intervention, even if they were well-meaning and well-intended, we know how that felt, right? So, and we know our own resistance, our own time that it took in order to make change, if we were able to accomplish change in an area of difficult behavior. How many trial and error learnings, how many relapses and pick it back up and try again kind of efforts were involved in that. That can give us some empathy and compassion for what our clients are up against and give us an understanding and maybe some patience, greater patience or tolerance for resistance when it happens. We are not to take it personally. Just like when we've struggled with areas of difficult behavior change, our clients are struggling with an area of difficult behavior change. And rolling with it, staying engaged relationally, not taking offense, not trying to actively confront our person out of their ambivalence, but rather using these different techniques that help are really what we have in our toolbox for being effective with somebody when they present in that kind of a way. Reframing, we talked about this as another kind of strategic way to shift things when working with a resistant or a highly ambivalent client. And, I guess another example might be if somebody comes in and says, the only reason I'm here is because my girlfriend or boyfriend said they'd kick me out unless I did something about my substance use. And the person's wanting to adopt the victim position and abdicate responsibility that there's anything that they think is a problem, or abdicate responsibility for them doing anything about it because it's that person's problem, don't you know? One reframe that can help de-escalate that kind of resistance or move, maybe a little bit out of that ambivalence is to reframe it as, gosh, it sounds like your boyfriend, girlfriend, is concerned about your health. That's a reframe. Person comes in thinking, yeah, I'm being victimized by this person, threatening to kick me out unless I do something about this problem that they think I have, and I'm not sure that I have it, reframing that as, well, a lot of times loved ones express concern when they're worried about something that they observe or think is bringing harm, to somebody that they care about. So I wonder if that's not some kind of expression of care or concern. And that can be a really de-escalating reframe, because the person comes in wanting to invite you to join them in blaming somebody else, and instead you're reframing it and saying, well, gosh, maybe that's an expression of concern. I wonder what they might be concerned about. All of a sudden takes the wind out of the sails of the blame game, and ideally the person's going to be better situated to respond to, well, gosh, I guess it could be. I guess I'm open to thinking that it might be an expression of concern. And then it puts the focus on where the topic needs to be, which is the potential problematic use of a substance, and considering what the loved one may be concerned about, and if there's any truth to that, anything that the person could honestly, admit to themselves also wondering about or worrying about or thinking about. So we've talked about summaries. It's another tool to use during this initial phase of motivational enhancement therapy to establish motivation for change. So by the time, this is session 1, right, of motivational enhancement therapy, and you want to, I guess we're making an assumption here that anybody who was referred to this in the Project Match study was at least ambivalent about changing. They at least had some argument for change resident within them to go along with that argument against change. And so it's not out of the realm of possibility to believe that in one pretty good, skillful session, we could identify some of those internally motivating factors. We could get away from, or stay away from some of those traps, and get away from creating conflict that would complicate and lengthen the amount of time that it took to engage well with somebody and develop good therapeutic alliance. And so when we get to phase 2, we're really talking about, okay, we've got some content on the table already. We've got some internally meaningful change and motivation for change factors that the client has been able to identify. And so for phase 2, the goal here is to strengthen commitment. We've heard some of the argument for change coming out of our client's mouth by the use of all those techniques. And so how do we strengthen commitment? Well, different things that we can do here. We can recognize when that change talk has moved from preparatory in nature, or non-existent first, to preparatory, and then to mobilizing change talk. We can train our ears well enough and practice and listen for and be able to identify different kinds of change talk. We can recognize when somebody's resolving ambivalence, recognize it by the resistant behavior going down, the questioning about if this is possible maybe going down, maybe more questions about how could I do this start to go up, more change talk, more acceptance being manifested, and the person's behavior lines up with being ready to make a change. So somebody showing up, somebody following through with homework assignments, somebody, however incremental, right? I love the approach where, the practitioner says to the client, okay, for homework this week, I'm wondering if you might be willing to check out fill in the blank, whatever resource. And the client says, oh man, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know that I'm ready to do that. And the therapist says, well, okay, how about we'll simplify it a little bit, break it down even more. How about instead of you going to check out that resource, that you just look in the yellow pages or on the internet or whatever, and you identify if that recovery supporting resource is even in your community. Okay, I can do that, right? So that's just an example. You take an assignment, a homework assignment, you break it down to a manageable chunk, but you never let the person off the hook for doing nothing, right? You're always trying to find out what's the best accurate fit for what that person's argument for change, however weak it is, what is it strong enough to accomplish? And finding that next step, that next incremental baby step even, to help that person move forward. Just like with the scaling questions, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident do you feel that you could, cut down or stop your substance using? And the person says a 3, okay? In the greater scheme of things, you wish it was a 9 or a 10, but it's not, it's a 3. Okay, that's honest, that's where the person's at. But then saying, gosh, it's a 3 and not a 1, I wonder what it is that makes you a 3 on that continuum rather than a 1, and helping that person orient their thinking to what that may be. And then that next thing of, gosh, I wonder what it would take for us to work together to maybe get that 3 up to a 4. Breaking it down, but always an insistent kind of emphasis on moving forward, however incrementally, is part of what good substance abuse counseling can involve. Readiness is sometimes also communicated by the person being able to envision and communicate a vision for a better life if they're able to reduce or stop using. And then, if we hear enough of that mobilizing change talk and we do our thing, we take our best guess, we gather all those different pieces of change talk, we put them together in a bouquet, if you will, and we offer them back to the client as a kind of a summary. So, I've heard all these different reasons why changing would be good, followed by that key question, what do you make of this? What comes next? And if we've guessed right, the answer that comes back will be some form of, well, I think I can commit to doing this, or gosh, I don't know. What options do you have that you could help me to consider? If we guess wrong, the person will say, well, I'm not going to do anything about it. Not there yet, still ambivalent. Okay, back up, continue to do motivational work. But if we've guessed right and we've been skillful in our leveraging that person forward using different motivational interviewing techniques, then more often than not, we're going to hear somebody say, yeah, I'm ready to consider some things that might be useful. And so here's where we're strengthening that commitment in the form of making a plan, helping that person make a plan. Starting global and working to the particular, right? Empowering the client at every turn to be the one to identify the strategy or the particular resource that they want to build into their plan. Making sure that they know it's their choice. You're there as a collaborative partner to help them build the thing, but they got to be driving that ship, right? So their language can be one technique that's good. Keeping that person empowered to have full buy-in to the development of their plan so that they are able to follow through with it. Certainly, if you have to, don't hesitate to revisit the consequences of taking action or not taking action, the pros and cons. That decisional matrix is an example of how this can be done in a good way. If no change happens, what does the future look like? If change were to happen, what could the future look like, right? Those are, elements of, or versions of change talk. But then the other two about fears about changing or any obstacles of changing, and then the advantages of using, that was kind of in reverse order. And I wouldn't present them that way if you're doing the decisional matrix, but those are basically the 4 quadrants of the decisional matrix with a little bit different language. And strategically, we would want to start with what are the benefits of using, the obstacles to stopping using, and after that, then explore what's not working so well about using and what could be better in the future if you're able to stop use. So decisional matrix is another technique that's valuable here. Information and advice. Many times, folks who use don't have all the information that they could benefit from having with regard to the substance that they're using, the impact that it has on their brain and body, the advancement of the addiction process, the advancement of the recovery process. What is, a post-acute withdrawal look and feel like for somebody who's addicted to the substance I am, who decides to stop? How long am I going to feel lousy? All those things are important to educate our individual that we're working with about, so that they're best equipped to be able to survive those phases and be informed by that information, so that they can feel empowered to move through it in as survivable a way as possible. The what do you think I should do question, okay, which is bound to happen when somebody moves toward greater action stage readiness. And that's a good question to have asked of us as practitioners, but it's one that we need to be cautious about responding to, about how we respond to it. What's good about it is that somebody's saying, what do you think I should do? That's pretty good change talk, right? That's, by and large, it's a good indication that that person has moved sufficiently beyond ambivalence and are ready to try and do something, try and change something, try and do something that's different. The trap there is for us to put on our expert hat and be very surgically precise and prescriptive about the thing that we think that they should do in order to get better. And that's clearly not helpful. What is helpful is saying, gosh, there's a number of options. Here's the menu. What do you think would be the best fit for you, right? We don't get overexcited by having an action stage person finally, in relationship with us that we can help move forward. We don't overreact to that happy reality, but we continue to practice in the empowerment sort of manner that's motivational interviewing prescribes, and putting the ball back in the client's court. What do you think? Here's the options. Here's me with my expertise contributing something. Now you with your expertise, you check out the menu and you tell me, what do you think is going to be the best fit for you, your lifestyle, your existing resources, and all the rest. So we don't want to be the rescuer in that situation. We don't want to fall into the expert trap. We want to continue to empower.